Hannibal Barkas, Carthage, Saurus blood, Tylis. Round of 16. Thank God somebody finally picked a map that we haven't seen before and picked a weather effect as well. I've been asking for that for a while. I wanted some extra variety. We've been seeing a lot of the desert maps, a lot of the green, grassy, flat maps. But we haven't seen any snow or rain or storm or fog or anything like that. So I'm glad that these players finally decided to do that for me. Really appreciate it. Looks like we're going to be on Stonehenge today. And we're going to be seeing kind of a meta build from Tylis here. One that we've seen a lot in this tournament so far. The Barbarian Rush builds. A lot of heavy swords. The Tribal Warriors with their 95 armor. If I had to say or pick a faction that is the best Barbarian faction in the metagame right now, it'd have to be Tylis. I talked about it in the Pro Kratos replay, but the 95 armor of the Tribal Warriors is insane, and it's so hard to deal with. But it looks like Hannibal Barkas has brought some units that he feels like he can counter that build with. Looks like there are going to be some Jav Cav out on the flank, but he brought 2 Mercenary Companion Cav, see if he can make those pay off. And he has a main line of some Mercenary Scutari and some Libyan infantry, and he also has an African War Elephant. So whether he can get into the main line of the Tribal Warriors with the elephants without them getting torn to shreds by javelins is probably going to be the deciding factor in this battle. I really feel like Tylis in this game has every tool that he needs to deal with elephants and Mercenary Companion Cavalry. Again, I don't feel like the elite tier melee cav on this patch is particularly effective. It doesn't mean that they can't get a lot of kills, but you have to hammer and anvil very well, have to get into the back of these units and make sure they're engaged, because if 95 armored Tribal Warriors turn around to face you when you're charging and they brace for the charge, you're not going to be doing very much damage, and you're going to be taking a javelin volley to the face. So he has some spears to protect his backline as well, and he has the javelins, the Mercenary Thracian Peltas, and the 4 Jav Cav, which will be able to tear through African elephants very easily. It looks like they're going to be engaging very close to Stonehenge itself, and Tylis is going to be taking a position right here in these woods, which should be very nice because Carthage has some Mercenary Queen Archers, 3 of them in fact, that he's going to be trying to skirmish with. So again, it looks like Carthage has brought a build that's going to be very reliant on the support troops. He cannot simply take an infantry engagement and expect to win with all those 95 armored Tribal Warriors and an Oathsworn anchoring the line. He really has no hope of just straight up winning an infantry engagement. Over on this side, looks like there's going to be a little bit of a miss micro. He's going to actually pull his cavalry through the spear unit and kind of get caught up, which is obviously not ideal. You don't want your cavalry getting caught up by Levy Freeman with a 25 bonus first large. So yeah, they'll take a little bit of losses here, which isn't great. Some Jav Cab out on the flank and some Levy Freeman up the middle, which the Gallic Warrior should have no trouble routing very quickly. This cavalry over here, the Carthaginian cavalry and a Mercenary Companion flanking all the way around. And it looks like this engagement is already going to start very early here. It looks like some Jav Cab tried to get into the Cretans, and they just kind of shredded them up before they got in. But Cretans haven't had a lot of time to fire, and it does look like Hannibal Barkas wants to take an infantry engagement here, which I'm not sure I agree with, but we'll see how that pays off. Looks like one of the Carthaginian Cav is trying to get into the skirmishers in the middle, and the Mercenary Companion Cav coming up the middle here, right, just running across the line in front of these Celtic Warriors and Tribal Warriors, and they are getting shredded right now. They were at full strength, and they just lost everyone. You don't want to engage swords from the front with melee cavalry, or really any cavalry except maybe cataphracts on this patch, and they just got punished really hard. Those Jav throws, they have a bonus first cavalry, and that did so much damage to them. Mercenary Companions, 1200 talents already off the field. Did a good job sneaking some Carthaginian cavalry into the Mercenary Thracian Peltas, and he's kind of disorganized Tylis' line. Done a pretty decent job with some of these hammer and anvils, but main line is going to start here. I think this is the engagement that Tylis wants, to be honest. Elephants are in the middle here. Didn't get a very good charge off. They're already running amok. Yeah, they're up to 50 kills, but I think it was on a kind of... No, actually it was on Oathsworn, so he's doing a decent job here, but they're running amok, and a lot of these Peltas in the back here are free. There's a Peltas right there, another Peltas. All 3 Peltas are still alive, and the elephants are running away from the engagement, which will give the Peltas time to fire in, so I'm looking to see if these elephants are going to end up dropping very quickly, but balance bar has already shifted way in Tylis' favor. Infantry line kind of crumbling for Carthage at the moment, and the elephants are starting to drop. They're at 100 kills, but that's really not enough against this Tylis main line. He needs to get way more kills with that to be cost effective with them. Mercenary Companions in the back already dealt with. raiding horsemen, Jav Cav got into them, did a lot of damage, and so did the spears. And in the back here, the Javelin Cavalry has gotten into the Cretan archers, may not be able to kill them very quickly, but all he needs to do is tie them down so they can't shoot while his main line kind of cleans up. Elephants are down to 5 men, still running amok in the middle of the Carthaginian main line, probably doing more damage at this point to his own forces than anything else, and of course, that's not Hannibal's fault, he can't prevent them from running amok, but yeah, they're doing a lot of damage to his own line, to be honest. And they're gonna just drop out of this battle real soon. There's not much they can do left at this point. Some mercenary Scutari did manage to get around behind the tribal warriors, but they're not very hurt, to be honest, the tribal warriors. And again, with that 95 armor, they should be able to tank this engagement pretty easily. Only 60 armor on the mercenary Scutari, so in the snow here, in Stonehenge, it looks like the Tylis build is just going to kind of take the field pretty convincingly. There are a couple units left for Hannibal Barkas at this point, but I don't think, yeah, I mean, there's no way he's going to be able to turn the battle at this point. Some more raiding horsemen coming into the late Libyan hoplites. Should be nice for the hoplites, should be able to get some kills here, but not a whole lot he can do at this point, as we just try to get a couple more cinematics before the end of this battle. So, I realize how many, it makes so much sense to bring companion cavalry, especially if you played earlier patches. It makes so much sense to bring them against barbarian builds. You know they're going to be bringing a lot of swords. You know that ideally, at least on earlier patches, they would just crush infantry. But I don't think we've seen anyone in this tournament so far utilize mercenary companion cavalry to their potential. And I don't think that's because of bad micro per se, although I do think that Hannibal Barkas definitely made some micro mistakes with his cavalry here. I think the biggest issue is that they're simply not that good versus infantry anymore. And there are so many ways to deal with them. And when you're spending 1,200 talents on a unit, you could bring 5 cheap sword units for that cost. And that would probably be a much better investment than bringing 1 mercenary companion cav, because Jav Cav counters them, low tier spears counter them, hell, 95 armored tribal warriors when they turn around and throw their javelins at them counter them. So it hasn't worked out. I haven't seen companion cav or melee cavalry in general make a big impact in this tournament at all. It really has been kind of the infantry meta. And this was a twist on the normal Tylis build, because he brought 3 Peltas and the 4 Jav Cav, which actually I think is pretty standard for Tylis. I think bringing 4 Jav Cav is very good, because they don't have any good melee cavalry anyway, and these guys can do a lot of damage going after enemy cavalry. One of the ways to counter Javelin Cavalry is to send a bunch of Levy Freemen out in front and try to screen your heavy cav with the Levy Freemen so they don't get any throws off. But left unmolested, they can do a lot of damage to enemy cavalry, and I think they did a pretty decent job this game. And then, of course, if you get around the flank and everything else is engaged, you can use them in melee as well to tie down enemy archer units. And the Cretans really didn't make a huge impact on this battle at all. The Companion Cavalry, 6 kills. They kind of just all got killed by the javelin throws from the main line. Just a little bit of a miss micro right there, but it cost them really bad. 1,200 talents that only got 6 kills. That's a really big problem. Then 89 kills on the Mercenary Companion Cav. That's decent, but the main line kind of just faltered, and they weren't. This build wasn't gonna beat Tylis in melee combat. They're the best barbarian faction right now, in my opinion. You're simply not gonna win a melee engagement with them if you take an engagement early. So with the 3 Cretans, again, I think that an engagement started too soon. I think, yeah, it's annoying to get picked apart by the Javelin Cavalry out on the flanks, but using your Cretan archers to target the enemy peltas, get them off the field before you send your Ellies in, would have been a really good move, and I think he needed to do it. It was the only way he was going to win. Because again, if we look at the main line here, no way Mercenary Scutari, no way Libyan infantry are going to beat tribal warriors one-on-one in melee. It's not going to happen. And there were 2 Osworn on the field as well. It's not going to happen. So I think that his build, again, could win versus Tylis, although it's very difficult. The sword spams on this meta are very hard to deal with unless you have cataphracts, which, by the way, start bringing cataphracts when they bring barbarians. It makes it so much easier, I promise you. Or just try to sword spam them. But anyway, I think that he needed to kill those peltas before taking an infantry engagement, because the elephants were the only thing that were going to give him that win in a melee fight. So yeah, I think there were some micro mistakes there. I know Hannibal Barkas is a very good player. I've seen some of his videos before. He's a very strong player. I just think that in this particular battle, I don't think he took the engagements he should have. And I think Saurus Blood did a good job. Like, he did exactly what he needed to do. Got his melee line into combat very early on. Did a good job harassing with the Jav Cav on the flanks. And brought the Peltas, which is a very smart move versus Carthage, because you know they're going to be bringing elephants, especially against a barbarian faction. So, good game to both players. Saurus Blood actually replaced Zeal Fuzzy Bear in the round of 16 because Zeal Fuzzy Bear didn't play his game and didn't get in contact with me. So he will be moving on to the round of 8, and Hannibal Barkas will unfortunately be sent out of the tournament. So we only have one more game left in the round of 16, and then we will move on to the round of 8, which I'm really excited for, because there, even though so far the meta has been, for this tournament anyway, been spam barbarian factions, spam swords, I think that's going to start shifting once we get into the next round, and we'll see if that happens or not. But I have a feeling that we'll start seeing some Armenia, some Parthia, maybe even some Rome, Getae, those kind of factions that are kind of put a different spin on things. And hopefully that's the case, because of course I don't want the entire tournament to be barbarian factions. But next game is actually going to be Boyai versus Macedon, so look forward to that. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you all later. Indy Pride signing out.